In this lesson, we're going to start out by looking at RESTful routing, which is widely used across frameworks for REST-style web services. We're interested in particular in the JAX RS and Restless frameworks, which we're going to be looking at shortly. So RESTful routing is a good place to start. Let me begin with a shout out to the Rails community. The Rails framework really pioneered and popularized a lot of the work in this area, and now everybody is pretty much on board. So you find so-called RESTful routing used in Java, in Python, and C++, and so on. The core idea is pretty straightforward. So what you see in this working file called restful.txt are 4 examples. And these examples essentially are the start line from HTTP requests. So you see the first one, get/predictions, verb, noun. The noun, of course, is the URI. The verb is the standard HTTP method. That combination maps to do-get. Changing the verb from get to post, but keeping the URI, takes us to a different function, in this case, do-post instead of do-get. And then there are 2 further examples. These, in effect, are parameterized. The 27 represents the ID of a particular prediction. So with the GET request, it's a request to read prediction 27. With the delete verb, it's a request to delete that prediction. So the verb and the noun together are, if you like, equal partners. It's not just the URI, it's the combination of verb and URI. Now, what does differ across frameworks is exactly how the RESTful routing is implemented. And in JAX RS in particular, annotations are widely used. So for example, there are annotations such as @get, @post, @put, @delete, pretty much what you'd expect. There also are further annotations. An example is down here. So you see @produces. This allows you to specify the document type that will be returned in response to the request. So in this particular example, you can see that it's going to be a JSON document. By the way, the name of the method down here, I call this getJSON. That's arbitrary. You could call it getABC or anything you like. Let me touch on one last point in this working file. You see down at the end, this is a pseudocode representation of what these RESTful frameworks are able to do. So you see get predictions / and then instead of a number such as 27, there's a placeholder, in this case ID, and then there's a regular expression, in this case an expression that requires 1 or more decimal digits. The important point here is that frameworks such as RESTlet and JAX RS make it possible to hand over basic data validation to the framework. And this is one of the features that's most attractive, I think, about these frameworks. Now let me move on to a second working file. This is called jaxrsstyle.txt. And I'd like to illustrate very quickly how you get RESTful routing in this framework. So as you can see here in the first example, there are 3 annotations, @get, @produces, @path. By the way, these could come in any order, but I've started with the verb. I've put produces in the middle and path at the end, but whatever style you prefer, it's easily done. The @get, of course, specifies the verb. The @path specifies the noun, the URI, and the produces is, as we'll see later, more a promise than a guarantee. So basically, I'm promising that JSON will be returned, but I have to do something to make sure that that happens. The second example of interest is the @path annotation. This illustrates the actual syntax for regular expression data verification. So in this case, you see that //d+. The /d+ is actually the regex expression, and it means 1 or more decimal integers. And then you see the @path param down here. I've put the cursor over the @. That indicates that the name of the placeholder is ID. So the name of the placeholder is arbitrary. It doesn't have to be ID. And there's a little review of basically what I've just covered. Now let me make one final point in this brief overview. JAX-RS allows us to automate the return of both XML documents and, where appropriate, JSON documents. What I've done in my example is to take the automatic generation of XML, but not the automatic generation of JSON. I'll get into the reasons later, but I'd like to indicate at this point that you can turn over a lot of the tasks: data validation, routing, XML, and JSON payload generation. You can turn these over to frameworks such as JAX, RS, and RESTlet.